Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. As we all know, technology has exploded in recent years. The devices and apps that most people have today were unheard of even a decade ago. Generally speaking, we like modern technology and all it has to offer, except that sometimes all the gadgets and gadgetry can get in the way of actually interacting with others. Recently, Across the Fence met with some tech-savvy young people whose use of technology is helping them learn how to communicate and work as a team.
I can go up a bit and we can take a look at campus.
Birds of a different kind of feather recently took flight at the University of Vermont.
We're at U.S. Air Force Drone Camp. This is a camp for youth of military families, and we're here out in the field on UVM campus.
So, where do you want me to go with the drone?
Go forward.
Okay.
This drone camp is a partnership between the University of Vermont Extension 4-H, Kansas State University, and the Air Force, who provides the funding.
We're able to offer these opportunities nationally to youth, so as long as they are able to get to Vermont and we're able to present the opportunity and get the information out to the national population of military families. And so that's really exciting because we had participants from Pennsylvania, Colorado, Massachusetts, and of course Vermont.
The 3-day camp offers youth a chance to explore drones, mapping, and GIS technology.
It's very, very fun. We do a lot of hands-on things with the drones and computer programs that can have 3D mapping and stuff. And it's just really cool to see it implemented into real life, really.
It's a pretty awesome experience just to see all the engineering that's gone into it, the progression over the years, the camera, everything. It's really awesome.
I think the most learning was the software stuff. Like, that was pretty cool. I didn't really understand how that worked, and now I do, so it's pretty cool. Yeah. Like, I thought they had to make the 3D models manually, but now I know they just upload it into a software, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Although learning about drones and mapping was a new experience, for camper Jared Williams, it was also a chance to get to meet people in his new town.
I especially like the drone flying, obviously, and it was also good because I could meet some people here because I don't really know anyone.
That has to go behind your ear. Yeah.
Williams, whose father is in the Army, knows a lot about what it's like to be new in town.
I live now in South Burlington. I used to live in Texas, just San Antonio, Texas. I just moved up here about 2 weeks ago. Before this, we lived in Texas. Then before that, we lived in Georgia. Then before that, Kansas, Arizona, and then before that, Germany, which is where I was born.
I can show you around Burlington before we check out.
Yeah, with the Phantom drone, we saw like almost all of Burlington, and then we saw the lake as well. It's smaller than I thought.
Whether they've moved around a lot or lived in Vermont for their whole lives, these campers know that the chance to connect with other military kids doesn't happen every day.
I mean, especially in Vermont, it's not very common to see other military kids, so it's nice to have a group, you know.
With our military families, oftentimes if there's a service member in the family, that member may be going off for extended trainings. If there's a deployment, there's just an additional layer of responsibility, not just on the service member, but also on the family. And so I think it's a unique situation that when we can provide that sense of belonging and community for youth to meet other youth who have some similarities in their personal stories. You know, it's helpful when they might go back to their classroom or school and there are other friends who don't necessarily identify with the unique, attributes to being a military family.
It's a unique opportunity for a special group of campers taking flight this summer. In Burlington, I'm Rebecca Gullen with Across the Fence.
Yeah, great job.
In all, 18 young people took part in Extension's drone camp. To learn more about opportunities in 4-H, contact your local UVM Extension office. When it comes to discussions about water quality in Vermont, most of the attention is focused on Lake Champlain and its watershed. But the lake is only part of Vermont's water quality story. Vermont's entire eastern border is formed by the Connecticut River, and that watershed incorporates 40% of Vermont's population. Keith Silva reports on how farmers are learning more about the benefits and challenges of farming alongside New England's longest waterway.
The Connecticut River runs 410 miles, which makes it New England's longest river. It courses through 4 states before emptying into Long Island Sound. The river's watershed is home to over 2 million people and some of the region's most productive farmland.
As you go up and down the valley, there's a lot of farming that's going on.
Karl Majewski is a dairy, livestock, and forage crop specialist with University of New Hampshire Extension. He's here at Cedar Mountain Farm in Heartland with researchers and agricultural service providers in New England to take part in an in-service training.
In order for farms to prosper, they've got to have good land to work with. The fields around here, they're more level, they're well drained, they're fertile. It's in a pretty good climate. You don't have to go too far. I mean, you can look out that way and you can see off into New Hampshire that it's not that far before it starts getting pretty steep and pretty rocky and a lot less conducive to farming. So, you know, there's good land over here, and so we want to take care of it.
Top of mind with everyone at this event are best management practices for protecting soil and improving water quality here in Vermont and hundreds of miles downriver.
If farms aren't careful, you can get nutrients leaving the field, getting into surface waters that makes its way into the river, that makes its way downstream. So if we can avoid that, then that's what we're working towards. You know, and it's in the farmer's own interest as well. I mean, farms, they pay good money for that nitrogen and all those other nutrients that they bring onto the farm. You don't want to just have them dribble away.
Animals we have at the moment, we have 58 cows, heifers, and steers. That's our combined number of animals.
Carrie Gawalt is the herdswoman and co-owner of Cedar Mountain Farm. In addition to dairy, they also raise vegetables and make cheese. She knows all too well about water quality and nutrient management concerns that affect farmers and the general public.
Just looking at the structure of our land, we have an incredibly gravelly soil. We have not a ton of cows on a, fairly small area, and many homes all the way around us. We really get worried about impacting people's drinking water. Even before it has a chance to get to the brook and go further, we just look at, we're surrounded, on everything that's not a hill. We are completely surrounded by homes.
Gawalt's neighbors are used to having cows graze within a few hundred feet of their homes. But this isn't the case for most people.
So I think there's been a big disconnect between farmers and a lot of the general public. So I think for people to realize that farmers are educated, they think about what they're doing. Nobody wants to have a dirty farm, and I think being able to just really communicate that farmers work really hard. Having, your farm fall into the river doesn't benefit anybody. That I think, farmers are working hard every day, but I'm not sure that message is always getting out there.
Gawalt and her fellow farmers on the Connecticut River have another challenge when it comes to perception and getting attention. Lake Champlain. Algae blooms from nutrient runoff have put a spotlight on the water quality of the lake, and for good reason. When farmers in the Connecticut River watershed compete with farmers in the Champlain Valley for state and national funding for on-farm projects to improve water quality, hard decisions have to be made.
It's important to remember there is water on this side of the state too. The water drains both ways. And one of the things you hear when you go to meetings is farmers over here say, wait a minute, nobody's paying attention on this side of the state to help with cost share for a lot of farms, especially who are directly on the river. They're looking for, being able to plant a buffer, being able to put in, a fence. That there's often are not a lot of resources because a lot of the perception is that the money is allocated to the other side of the state.
Gawalt worked with the National Resources Conservation Service, NRCS. She received funding for fencing, which reduced erosion, and constructed a bedded pack barn that composts manure when the cows are inside. Gawalt believes in being proactive.
Yeah, and for us, because we'd already been 10 years with working with NRCS, so when it came to the other water quality issues, we were prepared, which was good. You know, we weren't caught off guard. We'd already set up a nutrient management plan. We'd already made the manure stacking pad. We'd already done all these projects with, you know, more than half of it covered by, you know, NRCS, and so they really helped us with stuff we couldn't have afforded to do. But if we hadn't started on all this 10 years ago, you know, we did like $300,000 worth of improvements. So if you hadn't been paying attention or just not thinking about it at all, we've been really in a tough spot.
Farmers take pride in being stewards of the land. After all, their livelihoods and the lives of everyone else depends on protecting that land and preserving natural resources.
I think that the thing to keep in mind is that, you know, I'd say all farmers care about their land, they care about their animals, they care about their community. For us, that the most precious thing on the farm, aside from water, is soil. So if the soil leaves our farm, and we're fairly flat here, but if it leaves the farm and washes away, we will never get that back. And thousands and thousands of years, it's gone.
For Majewski and the others at this training, Cedar Mountain Farm is proof these practices to protect soil and improve water quality work, no matter what side of the river you're on.
We've got a lot of talent on either side of the river, and anything that we can do to collaborate and work with those farms is going to be a win-win. In a lot of cases, I mean, the farms themselves kind of cross that river, that there are plenty of farms in New Hampshire that are working fields in Vermont, and there are plenty of farms based in Vermont that are farming in New Hampshire. So, you know, the things that we can do to kind of educate farmers together, it just makes sense.
The Connecticut River and the land that surrounds it has been here a long time, and it's in everyone's best interest, farmer and citizen alike, to keep it that way for a longer time to come. In Heartland, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Thank you, Keith. Once again, thank you for joining us Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard.